So hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for joining EarthEcho's STEMExplore Virtual Career Connection featuring Dr. Diana Oviedo Vargas, who is a Watershed Biogeochemist at the Stroud Water Research Center. My name is Leela Devine. I am a senior in high school and a lab member and researcher at the University of Hawaii at Hilo, and I do work in marine biology and pharmacology. And I'm also a member of EarthEcho International's Youth Leadership Council. So EarthEcho International is a nonprofit founded on the belief that youth have the power to change the planet. Our free programs and resources have reached more than 2 million people in 146 countries. This live event is part of STEMExplore, which is EarthEcho's program that brings inspiration to life by telling the stories of dynamic female professionals in STEM careers during live virtual career connections. We want to thank our sponsor, Raytheon Technologies, for their support of women in STEM. And so just a reminder that you can send in questions anytime for our expert, and we will answer those throughout today's event. And if you are joining in Zoom, please use the Q&A feature. And if you're on YouTube, please use the comment section to ask your questions of our expert. And so now let's get started by introducing our STEMExplore mentor, Dr. Diana Oviedo Vargas. So Diana, could you tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do, and where you're located?
No, I am unmuted. Hello, everybody. Yes, so my name is Diana Oviedo Vargas, and I am a watershed biogeochemist. I'll tell you later some more about what that is, at the Stroud Water Research Center that's in Pennsylvania. I am actually from Costa Rica originally and have been studying and working in the United States for about 12 years now. So yeah.
Yep. Okay, so we'll start to trigger the first question, which I believe is on the slides.
Okay, am I sharing the right?
Yeah, might want to, if you press present on the top right of the screen. Yeah, sounds good, sounds good. Okay, so let's dive into our first question here. So what do you do for a living?
Sure, so I'll tell you a little bit about what, a watershed is and what biogeochemistry is. So in a few words, I study the movement of the chemicals between the different compartments in a watershed. And so the little graph to your right is a cartoon of what a watershed would look like. And we all live in a watershed. Unless you are out in the ocean, you are somewhere in a watershed. Watershed is basically the geographic definition of an area that drains into a particular stream or lake. And so what I do is I try to understand, or I help advance our understanding of how different chemicals move from the land into those streams and rivers, through the soil and through the geologic formations underneath, sometimes also through the atmosphere. And there are different activities in the watershed that will change those chemicals and modify them. And so my focus is on chemicals that are connected to human activities. So I'm particularly interested in things like pesticides that are used in agricultural activities, also fertilizers, which are also used in agricultural activities like nitrogen and phosphorus, and also greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide and methane. And the reason why I'm interested in these types of chemicals is because our activities on a watershed are continuously affecting these particular compounds and chemicals. And so there are also a lot of natural substances out there that I'm investigating too, but big focus is things that we are modifying through our patterns of living, where we live, where we have crops, where we develop land, where we deforest, where we put forest back, where we modify the rivers in the sense that we put dams, take dams out, things like that. So yeah, I wanted to show you a little bit of a few pictures to sort of give you an idea of what that means out in the field. And so the pictures I have here are from La Selva Biological Station in Costa Rica. I work there as a postdoctoral researcher, and what I'm doing in the first picture to the left is measuring temperature of the water in a small stream there at La Selva. Picture in the center, I'm collecting a water sample that will be later analyzed for concentrations of carbon dioxide and methane, which are greenhouse gases. And then the last picture is just a cute picture of the stream going underneath a root. So a lot of the work that I do it's been a great opportunity to be in really amazing places. Costa Rica, one of them, doing field work in the forest. But the pictures here are from a different project where we are actually working in the Gulf of Mexico in two different bays there, Barataria Bay and Apalachicola Bay. And for this particular project, what we were doing is trying to understand the carbon cycle in the bays, basically where the carbon is coming from and where it's going, because a lot of the materials that are exported from the land that enters the bays around the Gulf of Mexico is basically chewed up by microorganisms that live in the bays, and they generate, again, methane and carbon dioxide, which are greenhouse gases and important to understand from the point of view of climate change. So we were out there trying to quantify that carbon pool in the Gulf of Mexico. Then I have some pictures here that are from large rivers in the Western US, the Colorado River, the North Platte, the Green River, and these are examples of another amazing experience that I had doing field work out there when we were looking at, again, nitrogen, phosphorus, and carbon cycling in large rivers. But it's not always this nice. I actually spend a lot of my time as a PhD student in streams that are not as pretty. I was studying agricultural streams in Indiana. And like I was saying, a lot of the human activities like agriculture can have a big impact in our waterways. And so as you can see here in the first picture to the top left, the stream has a lot of algae in it. And that is because of all the nutrients that run off from the fields and create what we call eutrophication. There's a lot of sediment runoff too. And so the picture at the bottom here, what it is the sediment these streams have like basically like muck as a substrate, which is not the way we like to see our streams. So yeah, it's not always as nice to be out there, but it's also really important to do this kind of work in sites that don't look so pretty.
Yeah, cool. So moving on to the next question here, kind of looking into or diving a bit deeper into what more you do and what does an average day kind of look like for you?
I have a couple of videos here of not really what an average day looks for me. This is what I would like to be doing all the time, but it's also not very predictable. Every day is different. I really like to be out there in the field or in the lab, but that's really only a fraction of my time right now. And like the little diagram to the right sort of shows you, how I spend, any given day. And most of the time I spend writing proposals or writing papers. And there is a lot of other things that you sort of don't necessarily think about when you think about doing research, which is troubleshooting. I do a lot of troubleshooting. Nothing ever goes the way it's supposed to go, very, very few times. So I spend a lot of time fixing and rethinking and reorganizing and redoing. And then a lot of it is also just managing projects, managing the people that help me out in the field and in the lab. And so I can tell you what I'm doing in the first video is collecting soil samples from an agricultural field, and they're samples that are going to be analyzed for nitrogen and phosphorus, because we wanted to know what the content of the nitrogen and phosphorus and pesticides was in the soils. And then in the lower video, I'm collecting a sample from the stream in White Clay Creek. So I wanted to give you an idea of what like I do now, like my current research projects. The very nice stream here is White Clay Creek here in Indiana, or in Pennsylvania, right behind where we work at the Stroud Center, and that's basically our lab for a lot of the work that we do. And so one of my projects right now is focus on understanding the carbon concentrations in the stream. Carbon is a very essential element that it's basically what makes us and every living organism. And so the watershed provides a lot of carbon to streams and rivers. And so like in the when you think about in the fall, when you go to a stream and you sometimes see some like darker pools of water, that's the result of a lot of like leaves and soils that are leaching. And that's what we call the watershed tea, is this idea that a lot of components in the watershed sort of leach carbon into the stream. And sometimes it's colored, like sometimes during the fall. And so I have these sensors out there, like what you see here in the video. I was testing one of the sensors that are continuously measuring the color of the water. And that allows me to know how much organic carbon it is there is in the water at any given time. And these sensors collect data continuously, so every 5 minutes. And so I am able to see like how that concentration of carbon changes, say during a storm event, or how it changes during the day sometimes, because you can see changes even happening from the night to the day as the hydrology of the stream changes. And then one more project I wanted to tell you about is this work that we're doing in a collaboration with the Rodale Institute. For this particular project, we have a few experimental watersheds where they're watersheds that are agricultural, and we have modified the different agricultural practices in a way that we have like a contrast between traditional agriculture and then other practices that are more environmentally friendly, that include things like application of cover crops, no tilling, and things that really help the health of the soil. And then we also have a watershed that has actually gone to organic agriculture. And what we're doing is comparing those three watersheds to understand how they affect the water quality of the water that drains into the streams and rivers nearby. And so what we are doing there in the video is building this, what we call rainfall simulator, which is what it sounds like. It's fake rain. We fake rain and we collect the runoff from that rain to understand the amount of sediments and chemicals that are basically being exported into the stream when you have a big rain event. That's a very exciting project. So those are two of the main things that I am working on right now.
Yeah, cool. And we have a question coming in from Jared on YouTube. And he asks, if water is darker, does that mean that it's more unhealthy?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Not necessarily, actually. That tinted color sometimes gives like a funny taste or a smell to the water, but it's not necessarily going to be bad for you. The problem with sometimes with really high loads of organic carbon in the streams is that natural organic carbon can react with other chemicals that we put in the water, like chlorine, and it creates other compounds that can be toxic. And so the organic carbon itself is not. So the tinted water it's not necessarily going to be bad for you, but drinking water does get treated for that. There is filters when drinking water supplies use water from a river or a stream. They filter out the organic carbon so that it doesn't smell funny or taste funny. It won't hurt you though. Other things might, but no, not the organic carbon.
You never know what's going to be in the water. So I have a quick question. This is kind of coming from someone I've gotten my research published, and like how you were saying, doing science isn't completely always this glorious thing where you're out in the field. Like if I could, I would always be diving and I would always be looking at the different parts of the reef. But unfortunately, not unfortunately, I guess it kind of depends on what your interests are in terms of writing. What's your favorite, like, I guess, not necessarily publication or like something that you've written for like a manuscript, because I know how you're getting in a lot of these new types of technologies to be used. And so what's kind of like your favorite one that you've done in terms of your past projects?
Like writing kind of?
Yeah, like
publication.
Something that you've probably ended up turning into a publication maybe.
I think that the project where I worked in Costa Rica, that was a very neat work where that was like relatively easy, not easy, but straightforward to publish because things just fell in the right place. And so that work, so that at La Selva in Costa Rica, there is this really interesting hydrogeology where you have water that is really old, that rained like 4,000 years ago, that accumulates under the surface of the earth and comes out at that area in La Selva. And the water is really old and it's been traveling for a long time. And because it's area, it actually picks up a lot of carbon dioxide from that volcanic system. So you have one stream next to another, and one stream has 10 to 100 times more carbon dioxide than the other one, which is really unusual. And it's just because one stream receives that really rich water and the other one doesn't. And it's been a place to study hydrology and these kinds of processes for many, many, many years. And what I was doing is was trying to quantify, okay, we have these systems receiving all that carbon dioxide, and then where does that carbon dioxide go? And it goes to the atmosphere, as you can imagine. But that was something that I really enjoyed writing, especially because I was working in Costa Rica, which is my home country, and publishing. It became a publication. So I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah, that did. That's honestly super, super cool. And so now we're going to move on back to the slideshow and start to kind of explore a little bit more into the things that you do. So hopefully, there we go. So our next question is, what's one of the coolest things that you've done or that you've seen as part of your job?
Yeah, this was a hard question to answer, but I have a couple of examples. I mean, I've done a lot of cool things. I should say that I really enjoy doing this kind of thing what we're doing right now, which is interacting with people, young people that are interested in becoming scientists, or not necessarily just becoming scientists, but people of all ages really, and try to share with the general public the things that I do are usually very exciting for me. But anyway, so in this the figures here, the pictures here are from that one project that I was telling you earlier that we did in the big rivers out west. And that was really nice because I was working with a large group of other students and professors and technicians. And that is like one of the nicest things about being part of like a research team is that interaction with a bunch of other people that really become like, you become really good friends and colleagues, and it was a very nice experience. But what we were doing is, sounds kind of crazy, but this is the Colorado River here in the video in Utah. And I am in that, on the bridge, and we are throwing basically buckets that are full of nitrogen and phosphorus. And we're doing that. It's sounds kind of crazy, and it's not going to hurt anything or anybody in the river, but we were doing it so that we could track the nitrogen and the phosphorus as they move down the river. And we were doing that to try and understand what happens with those nutrients in the large rivers. And this is something that we do a lot in small streams, but it's hard to do it in large rivers because, if you can imagine, you need a lot more nitrogen and a lot more phosphorus. So it was like a huge enterprise. And we did this same experiment in 5 rivers out west and 5 rivers in the Midwest. So that was a nice, very neat project and very interesting work. I have another example, and this is from the Maritza Biological Station in Costa Rica. The Stroud Center manages this station. The station is in the northwestern part of the country in provinces called Guanacaste. And this is an absolutely beautiful place that I actually had never been to until I started working at Stroud. It's very far away from everything, and it has these wonderful views. There's like always a beautiful rainbow or beautiful sunset. But we were out there doing some work, collecting some samples, and we saw this tapir that decided to go in for some swimming. And it was a really, really amazing experience to be able to like see it and just enjoy the the tapir there in the stream. Very, very beautiful.
Yeah, sounds great. It's a very, very cool tapir, I do have to say. I've never actually seen one. So that video, I was like watching it and it was like, wow. So we have a question coming in the chat from Elizabeth. It's a bit of a long one here. So Elizabeth is a PhD student who is studying mercury biogeochemistry, and she's not sure whether she wants to be, or she wants to be either a biogeochemist or an analytical chemist. But she doesn't want to spend half of her time writing grant proposals and research papers, which I feel that on a different level. And so she's happy to do lots of lab work, field work, and troubleshooting. And so she asks, is there a particular career path that I should look for where I could still work on biogeochemistry without spending so much time writing? And does this type of position exist for someone with a PhD?
Yes, the short answer is yes, they do exist, and yes, you can find that niche or that place in which you can, even though you have your PhD, and you don't necessarily have to be writing grants and writing papers. I would say that they're not as many options out there, but they do exist. I think that, for example, places like the U.S. EPA or which is a U.S. Department of Environmental Protection, or Environmental Protection Agency, U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, or USGS. They are federal agencies that sometimes have those kinds of positions, which they are definitely looking for somebody that has a PhD and that kind of experience, but there isn't that much of a requirement for grant writing. You might have to write a lot of reports, but there isn't so much of need for bringing your own money for research. The other options are state agencies too, like the environmental departments of the different states. They sometimes also have those kinds of opportunities. Or you can also work for a consulting company or a consulting firm. I think that those might be less, there might be less options out there, but they do exist. Or you can have your own too. If you want to start your own consulting firm, you can definitely do that, and then you don't have to write any papers.
Yeah, that's a great question. The paper writing and the grant writing is really fun. It definitely can be quite lengthy. So let's move on to the next part of the slideshow, which mainly talks about kind of everyone's stories, right? We all come from such cool backgrounds depending on where you're located and depending on where you're from. It's like for me, I'm in Hawaii, right? So a lot of the things that have inspired me to do my research is my time near the reef. And so my question to you is, what has really inspired you to do this work?
Yeah, I mean, that's really what you're saying is pretty close to what has been my experience. I think that it's always been because I have had a strong passion for the environment and environmental protection, and everything that has to do with helping finding solutions for our environmental problems. And to me, growing up, even though you probably hear of Costa Rica as this like really nice place for tourists, very everything is very environmentally friendly, and eco lodges and ecotourism is a huge deal in Costa Rica. And yes, we have beautiful places. There's a lot of land that is protected in Costa Rica, which helps a lot. There's also a lot of water problems, and the agricultural areas and the urban areas, you find rivers that look like that picture on the right. That's actually a river in Costa Rica. And I grew up seeing this and always feeling very upset about how our rivers and streams looked. Because like many other countries in Latin America, we don't really have treatment plants like they are in the United States. Here, basically, most of the water that is served, water that we use before it goes back into any stream or river, is treated to a certain extent. And we don't do that. And so we have really serious contamination problems. So that's sort of how I started looking into options of or career paths that were going to be related to helping solve some of these problems in Costa Rica. And now I am sort of working there, but also in other countries, which is very nice too. So yeah, I think that was probably the thing that got me going into this career path.
Yeah, I totally get you. And it's honestly really cool. And we also have some more people coming in from YouTube who are a little interested in your story. So Cindy from YouTube asks, where in Costa Rica are you from and when did you move to the US?
I am from Alajuela, is the name of the province, which is where the airport is. If you've ever been there, and there's two airports now. For the longest time there was only one airport in Costa Rica, but the main international airport, my family lives 15 minutes away from there, and I moved to the US in 2008.
Sounds great. Sounds great. So we can move on to the next question here. So what innovation in your field are you most excited about?
Yeah, I think that one particular development that is to me very, very, very exciting, very interesting is our ability to visualize data in real time that nowadays. And so what I have here is this is just a screenshot of the website that is called Monitor My Watershed, or site that is being developed by the Stroudwater Research Center where I work. And I'm going to just give you an idea of, what this looks like. Monitor My Watershed is, am I still showing?
Yeah, you're good. It's just loading a bit. You're almost there.
Yeah. It's a network that anybody can use to visualize and data that is already there, but also put your data in there if you want to. So it's right now, most of our sites are in the United States, but there's a few things outside of the United States too. What you're seeing, every single one of these points is locations where there is a set of sensors collecting real-time data from a river or a stream. And those sensors can be for different things, but for the most part, the sensors that belong to this network collect water temperature, electric conductivity, and sometimes turbidity, and water depth too. And so anybody can go into this website and look around and check out the different stations. I'm gonna zoom in to near where I am here in Pennsylvania. Just to give you an example, I'm gonna click on this site. The different colors mean how long ago the last data was loaded. So a green one means that it has relatively new data. So I don't know which side this is, just to give you an example. This is Primrose Creek, and you can look at the location and some basic information, but then you can also go and look at the site and you see, okay, this is a small stream somewhere in Pennsylvania, and you can see also the kind of data that they have been collecting. So I have water depth, temperature, electric conductivity, and then some more things related to the sensors. But this is very interesting because, for me, especially for the work that I do, I am like constantly checking the sensors to see what the streams are doing. The water depth here, for example, this is showing you that it probably rained and the water depth went up. And it looks like whatever water came with the rain was warmer than the temperature of the water that was in the stream, because we see the temperature increasing. But so this is absolutely, I think, really cool, very interesting, and it is open to the public, like I said. So it is a way for people to sort of organize their data if they have any, if you have a site where you have been collecting data, but also for like teachers to show students about these kinds of data, or for researchers also to do different kinds of analysis depending on the things that they are studying. And then the idea that you can see real time what is happening out there is also, I think, very, very interesting and really exciting. So that was, like, I think, one of the things I am most excited about when it comes to the new developments.
Yeah, that honestly sounds amazing. And for anyone that's interested in exploring that, we've dropped the link to this website in the chat. It's especially helpful for any maybe even intermediate and high school students who want to go into science or who want to get into water quality monitoring. This is something really cool that you guys can start looking around into. And maybe if anyone, I'm slightly partial to this, is interested in doing science fair and want to look into water monitoring as one of those options, especially in the middle of COVID, I feel like this site could be something really, really cool that you could possibly integrate into your project.
That's a great idea. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways that people have been trying to find and use online databases to contribute to their projects, especially if you're in high school and websites like these are honestly really helpful. I've been trying to find some for coral reef data in NOAA, and looking at stuff like this is something that could honestly make or break a project. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, it's really cool. And so let's move on back to the slides here and looking into how does your work contribute to a sustainable future?
Um, I guess I would say that even though, well, probably the most important contribution is how my research helps understanding how our activities as humans affect water quality. And even though my focus is in streams and rivers and sort of like on the other end of the water cycle where things are moving from the land to the river, that streams and rivers are the main provider or one of the largest providers for drinking water. So even though I'm not necessarily working on drinking water, it is an important part of it because that's where the drinking water comes from. And we need water for drinking for a sustainable future, but we we also are moving, I think, a lot towards improving our farm practices and improving soil health and trying to minimize things like runoff in urban areas, things like using pavements that are not impervious, for example. All those things that are, sustainable practices eventually connect to water quality, which, is what I do. So even though, maybe my work is a small link between different things, like a lot of us doing the same thing is what we need to, or a lot of us doing the same or similar kind of research is what we need to really try and understand what are the best practices out there that can help us mitigate some of the contamination issues that we have and improve water quality.
Yeah, I think science is a really cool collaborative thing. Honestly, trying to find collaboration between different interdisciplinary studies and being able to contact and talk to new people is one of the parts about science that I think makes it so cool, is the collaboration that you're able to get out of it. And so to any of our audience members that are interested in looking into watershed biogeochemistry or looking into monitoring water quality, kind of like in the website that we showed, also feel free to check out EarthEcho's Water Challenge, and basically looking into different ways that you can conserve and monitor waters in your local areas as well. And yeah, I believe we might be moving on to the next slide somewhere around there.
Am I showing?
Yeah, okay, you're good. So what advice would you give to students, especially those that are interested in your field?
So I think that the biggest advice really is do something that you like. That's really the most important thing. Is science something that motivates you? Do you like science? And if the answer is yes, that's really all you need to know. It doesn't really matter what kind of degree you have or what kind of degree you're thinking of getting, or how many degrees you have or which school you went to. The important thing is that you're doing something that you're going to enjoy and that you're passionate about. And you don't have to be a research scientist to be part of the scientific process. There's a lot of options out there. And also, you don't have to do that for the rest of your life, or you don't have to start doing it now. I have a good friend that was working at the Stroud Center recently who is in his 40s, and he is now getting his PhD, but for the last 20 years, he was a chef and a Marine. And so or no, maybe he was in the Army, don't remember, but he started kind of late, and that's okay. And also, a career in science can be a 5-year thing or a 10-year thing or the rest of your life. But either way, it would be an absolutely great thing to do. Again, you don't have to do it now. You don't have to do it forever either. So, and I think that is for anything that you decide to do with your life. You don't have to, think that, okay, I'm gonna have to commit to this for the rest of your life. That's not definitely how it is. And then the other thing is that what I do right now, I'm sure it's so dynamic and so evolving that it's going to be very different in 2 years and in 4 years. And even though right now I spend a lot of time writing proposals, which I don't really like and I struggle a lot with, I think in 2 years I'm gonna feel very different about that, and it's probably gonna be a lot easier. So yeah, I don't know. I guess
Yeah,
that's my advice.
I think science is really cool in terms of, because everything's changing, you have that large growth mindset that you keep on going. Like with me, I look back on some of the papers that I wrote just last year and it's like, oh, that's a little bit cringy, but at least you know that you've been able to grow in terms of not just what you do in the field, but what you do when you're writing and when you're analyzing data and the different types of connections that you can be making, especially in the research field. And so, yeah, I think that's something really cool.
Yeah. The thing is you don't realize, but you are constantly improving and training and moving. And so something that you never think you were going to be able to do or you're struggling with, it just becomes easier and easier. And it's just like everything else. So.
Yeah. So great. So thank you so much, Diana. You can stay up to date with Diana's work as well as check out Stroud Research Center with these links to their social channels and to their website. And so thank you so much again.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Thank you very much for the opportunity. This was really nice.
Yep. And also be sure to stay connected with EarthEcho on our social media channels. So visit earthecho.org to find out more information about all of our exciting programs, including upcoming virtual events just like this one. And if you are on YouTube, don't forget to hit that subscribe button before you go.
All right.
And so on behalf of EarthEcho International, thank you for joining us and keep exploring.
Thank you.